And we are having here on the front page of the Standard this morning, Eating Chiefs, the shame of the Rio scandal. And of course, there's an assertion by the Daily Nation that how Rio got away with a slap on the wrist, given the magnitude of the monies that were misused. Also on the Business Daily's front page, you're being told of the same export CS escapes jail after paying a 3.6 million shilling fine. He was convicted for the 3 offences of abuse of office by allowing 3 officials to travel to Rio. Now, UK takes over the 2 billion shilling in sports pesa blocked, and unnamed party opposes the dissolution and surrender of assets owned by the betting firm's British associate. That's what's making headlines on the front page of the Business Daily. But we were on the thorny issue of the economy. Broke treasuries is on a borrowing spree, and we're told on the front page of the Standard this morning, so dire is the debt crisis that for every 3 shillings collected by KRA, 2 shillings are gobbled up by debt, according to the Controller of Budget, which is unfortunate because you're having very dire situation when it comes to the cost of living for the Mwananchi. Over the break, we're having a conversation with Professor here, and he says, where is the hustler movement to speak up for the common Mwananchi? Because these are the issues that should be addressed if that is an ideology that they are serious about. And we had Honorable Kasim earlier on saying that the ANC party has been very consistent when it comes to the economy, and that seems to be quite true. So it also boils down to political goodwill of the leaders that we have. Professor, mind getting into that a bit?
Yes, you see, when a party in an election takes a position, you would expect they believe in that position. They believe that they tell us about leaving the money in our pockets, in the Asola's pockets. How do you do that? You do that by less taxation. Now, when all this taxation continues in an underperforming economy, because that's anyway how you kill the economy, because if you want to kill an underperforming economy, raise taxes when the economy is not performing, that reduces consumption, that undermines the economy even further.
Yes.
But where is the proponents of the bottom-up? Because the bottom-up is now being suppressed. Yes. You would expect to hear them. So these Kenyans need to wake up and engage people appropriately. Because like Mheshimiwa Tandaza said, I've heard only 2 politicians speak about what is happening to the people of Kenya today. That is Musalia Mudavadi and the Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi. Yeah. Both of them have objected to the astronomical rise in the cost of energy. I have never heard any of these people address the cartels, which make it impossible for the Kenyans to benefit from the investment. This government, by the way, to their credit, has invested heavily in energy. But that investment has not benefited the Kenyans because they continue to fund illegal cartels who are within government, remember, because the corruption in this country is actually carried out by the government, by the state. Yes. Because without the state entering into corruption, the corruption cannot last even 1 day. So where is the Azolas? Where is all these people to ask to even organize parliament to reject this taxation? Because parliament can reject taxation. Where are they? They are not anywhere, because unfortunately for this country, all these people form the baroque of the cartels, fleecing them, killing them. Look at the energy. The contract was signed in 2002. Yes. Kibaki government protected these illegal fellows. The Jubilee government has protected them. If we are not careful, the next government will continue protecting these cartels, and the Kenyans will continue to suffer. So Kenyans need to start listening to people like Mudavadi, people like Justin Muturi. They need to start listening to people now who are ready to confront the cartels and stop the theft of the Kenyan public resources by their own government. Yes, it has to stop.
Honorable Tandaza, you, when it comes to the electorate, when we listen to politicians, at the same time we do have the media covering these things quite in an in-depth manner. We cannot plead ignorance and say that the people do not know what their leaders are doing. And when it comes to even understanding, we have radio stations in vernacular, so there's no excuse that the people do not know. How come we're having an electorate that keeps bringing back leaders that are not doing the best for them?
Well, when it comes to matters corruption tricks, the electorate are not holier either. It starts from the process of electing that leader. Is that leader elected purely on the basis of the ideas and policies that he has to his people or her people or to the nation at large? The answer is no. The type of bribery that goes on during the electioneering period runs into billions. And even when the IEBC, the issue of the budget, the campaign budget, the ceiling they were trying to put, talking about 4 billion for pay. Surely, where does this money go? Certainly, it's not about logistics only. It's not about transport. I think they factored in some monies for bribing the voters, for giving handouts to the voters. And actually, the voters end up voting purely based on probably was given them more. That is where the problem is. And even when it comes to the presidential seat tricks, the voter himself purely votes on the basis of his tribe, his or her tribe, his ethnic orientation, nothing else. There are several surveys which have been done about corruption. And all along, from the elitist point of view, we would have imagined that the ordinary Kenyan hates corruption or shuns corruption. But no, we've seen it, where the ordinary person himself, even when somebody is convicted because he's stolen or is tried in court because of corruption, they will say, no, no, no. You are victimizing that person. If he's corrupt, fine, but he's our person. Let him steal, provided that he brings us that money to us. Of course, it is never taken to them, but simply because that person belongs to their tribe, then they protect him. So, to me, it will take 2 levels, actually. One, the executive, that is the presidency for this matter, takes this issue seriously, but the ordinary Mwananchi, the one who is hurt most, because that is where the missing link is, that they also engage in that vice in one way or the other. And that is why I've said this debate is unlikely to end soon. But if I were to be the president, I would end it because other countries have managed to end, and it starts from the top. My model is that for corruption to end, it must start from the top, because that is where it should in other countries.
They say the fish rots from the head. Yeah.
How deep the state capture is in this country. The president issued Executive Order number 2 of 2018. Mm-hmm. He made it very clear that all the government procurement must be posted on the website, indicating why someone doesn't got this tender and why this one did not get it, and which particular, who are the directors. That executive order was beautiful. Yeah. It would have cut corruption by 90%.
Yes.
It was ignored 100%.
Yeah, that's quite concerning. And over the break we're having this conversation, and we did mention that Mheshimiwa has said it is sort of asserted that it's a cultural thing in a way, and that is at a people level, society's level. When it comes to our institutions, it seems to be institutionalized thievery. It's well incorporated in the systems, and therefore just seems to be the way that we do our things. What do you make of that, Professor Omenya?
You're very right, and Prof. Naituli and Tandaza have highlighted that very well. I just want to really emphasize that we don't have cartels trying to interfere with how government runs, or trying to, mess around the good functioning of government. I want to state with no fear of contradiction that we actually have cartels running government. Those running governments are the cartel. What Kenyans have not actually realized is that all these nefarious characters who are doing business with government and so on have actually taken over government. They are now government ministers. They sit in all sorts of government procurement committees. They sit in foreign affairs, in the army, everywhere. We have a situation where the thieves are now in charge. The thieves are not working with people in government to steal from government. No, the thieves are the ones running government. Cartel are those people that we are purporting to have elected. This is something and the depth of the challenge that we have. That's why when you look for cartels everywhere, you don't find them, because the guys looking for the cartels are the cartels. They're there in DCI office. They've taken over CASA. They're there in the president's executive office. They're directors in ministries. They're cars and so on. So our problem is a little bit deeper and structural. That those who traditionally were stealing and trying to do business with government are now in government. They're the ones running government, they're the ones making decisions and so on. And that's why it's going to be a big challenge to uproot the sort of mess that we are actually talking about. I will not actually route for a revolution, but this is the sort of thing that has led in many countries for revolutions with massacre of literally every single person in government to cleanse, to drain the swamp, as it actually were. Yes, so even as we continue thinking about how to remove this cancer, we must actually understand that the problem is way deeper. Who is deciding whether we are building SGR? Who is deciding whether we are building expressway? Who's deciding whether we are getting this loan or the other? Yes, you can say it's government, but it is the so-called cartels. These are the guys who sit around the table and make those decisions. Honorable Tandaza and his friends in parliament can debate whatever they want, but those actions are proceeding. Who decides where government is going to spend its money? It is the same characters. This is a sad situation we are in. And these fellows are only pushing for their interests. They're not even investing the money here. After they steal the money, they take them offshore. So our problem is very, very deep. Anne, back to you.
What you have described basically is institutionalized corruption. Unfortunately, that is not, seemingly it's not ending soon if there's any of the signs are anything to go by. And speaking of something that has been cyclical, has to do with the situation that unfolded in Laikipia. Professor Naituli, what was your take on the fact that we had to go through literally a photocopy of something that has happened in many years, over and over again, and the lengths that it has been given to the election season?
Laikipia is an extremely unfortunate situation. And it's similar to what is happening now in education, the linkage, the IEBC. The IEBC is an expensive system. We know that now. Should never have been introduced here because the government has no money to fund it. Yeah. But we introduced it, creating a problem, but now we will be afraid to solve it. So this is how Laikipia is. The problem with Laikipia, unfortunately, is historical. It's not new. You see, what is now causing the problem is the drought. Yeah. Because these people, basically, they have nowhere to move because of historical land issues. But we are afraid. We don't want to confront it. So, and unfortunately also, when the people are miserable, they turn on each other. Yeah. So the Laikipia people are miserable, the Samburus and the other people. And therefore, they didn't do. They turn on very innocent, poor other Kenyans, when the real issue is actually land ownership.
Yeah.
That is the real issue. But nobody want to address that, just like we will now continue in this mess we have caused with the CBC.
Yeah.
We continuing with the mess we caused with the devolving health, when we knew too well that the county didn't have the capacity to handle it. In other words, as a people, when we make a mistake, we never correct it.
Right.
This is another problem. So like people, the government need to address it with the finality. And the way you do that with the finality is to understand the misery these people are when they have nowhere to graze their cows or to water their animals. Of course, the other politicians also warmongers take advantage.
Yes, they do.
And they now decided to make a bad situation already worse. But a kind and gentle government, you need to take a look at that situation so that it's not repetitive every time there is drought. Remember, there is no problem when there is rain, good rain, because when there is rain, these fellows, the small area they occupy can feed them.
For sure.
But when there is no rain, this thing flare up. So we need to have a sort of approach to it.
Yeah.
I mean, we can accuse all these other fellows for incitement, but that will not solve the problem.
Yes, yes, yes. Honorable Tandaza, this is a situation that has been captured on page 8 of the Daily Nation. They say livestock market abandoned over chaos. This is the Rumuruti livestock auction market in Laikipia County, following clashes between herders and locals, and as an MP arrested over the violence was released by a Nakuru court. Now, this is unfortunate. Approximately 10,000 people were from outside this area flocked to the market, and of course, and more than 1 million shillings exchanges hands. And this is an economic activity that is beneficial for the locals, but it's not happening. At the same time, we had earlier on reports that we had teachers and students afraid of going back to school or not wanting to be in danger by venturing out as they would normally. But of course, this is, as we have put it, something that has happened over and over again. What do you make of it?
What I make of it, the government is not really interested in giving good services, in managing these people well. The land issue has been there since time immemorial. The 2010 Constitution attempted to somehow handle the land issue by even coming up with the National Land Commission. Okay, it's history now. The powers that the current National Land Commission has, for sure, cannot handle the land matters the way they are in Kenya. They are not just in Laikipia, they are all over. In cost, yes, we've had the clashes, probably not as magnified or probably not as reported, because from where I sit, whatever happens up country tend to get more attention than whatever happens in cost. The media people probably have a reason to do that. But these issues have been there. The government has not been interested in handling them. More so, now that we are approaching our general election, I could say I'm afraid that we are yet to see, that we are likely to see more of those clashes. Well, on the economic front, yes, pasture, lack of pasture and all that. But again, in terms of seeing how one gets re-elected, could it be from the parliamentary level, or sometimes it goes even to the presidential level? We've seen this happen before. If you were to ask me previously, Trix, there would have been no reason to have had the Likoni clashes previously. We didn't have pasture issues, we didn't have economic issues with upcountry people per se. We would not have had the Kayabombos and whatever. So this is very unfortunate, and it is clearly within the government. They have all the resources. When it comes to the security agencies have not complained of lack of resources or manpower. They have all the experts. If they are to mitigate the issues of drought, we have all the experts in the different ministries, including now we have even the Drought Management Authority specifically. This has all the facts, it has all the forecast, it has all the data, and it's upon the government to prioritize where to start. But as we've been having this debate, and I don't want to bring it back, we seem to be prioritizing in areas where we'll get more kickbacks instead of areas where we'll make Kenyans more comfortable and move on. It's so unfortunate if children are not able to go to school in this area. Remember, we are just from a pandemic where we've had a long closure. Now we are having some areas where the same Kenyan child is not able to go to school, and yet Magoha comes out with all the confidence and says CBC is there to stay, everything is in course, exams will be done with no preparation.
In a short while, yes, and I'll allow you to finish your thought then. But I'd like to bring in Professor Omenya on this one as well. What's happening in Laikipia? Professor Naituli has asserted that we need to understand a good government, a gentle government needs to understand the local dynamics, and that will inform the solutions that will be put in place, and that those solutions will probably be more lasting as opposed to what's happening, the knee-jerk reactions that we are seeing right now. But I'd like to pose to you, Professor Omenya, we have the Ndungu report, the Akiumi reports that are gathering dust. What do you make of the fact that we have actual solutions that have been gathered that have not been implemented, and of course we keep seeing the result over and over again?
Thank you, Anne. Laikipia is also an indictment and a demonstration of incompetence in government, and a government that lacks depth. Why do I say that? I say that because Laikipia and the creation of the problems of Laikipia is something that has been extremely well documented. And Laikipia's problem started many years ago with the colonial government forcefully, pushing the Maasais and the Saburus off the land to create the so-called ranches and so on. Of course, this brought a lot of issues. Then we know eventually. At independence, just giving a very quick sketch, it was felt that there was need to deal with the rangeland issues. I mean, because majority of people live in Laikipia, either smallholders or pastoralists, who actually need large amounts of land to survive. And in fact, it was their land in the first instance. And we know again that the Kenyatta, the one government, totally messed up the whole thing by again allocating land to themselves and influential individuals. And the ranches, in fact, incidentally, which continue being protected, and that was a good thing, was a very good opportunity, to start organizing people through land buying companies, so that the locals would end up with their lands being protected, but also have the land, being productive. But of course, this went haywire with all sorts of speculators, getting in and out of Laikipia. So now we are in this particular situation. If now, if you hear in the media, they tell you, no, Laikipia is a new Karen. Dash in there and buy your land. And we have now this bizarre situation that has cooked for more than 100 years, where we've got ranchers there with tens of thousands of acres of land, where some conservation is happening, again, the basis of colonial law. Meanwhile, of course, you also have large-scale agricultural practices, and which is rightly needed by the country. And at the same time, you find these children of lesser gods that nobody ever cared about, totally being squeezed so that they cannot be able to survive on the basis of the small piece of land that they actually have. So immediately you have issues like drought. things just go haywire because these people don't know exactly what to do. They start infringing into each people's lands and so on. And of course, the settlement around Laikipia also was political. So what happens that whenever we are approaching elections, all these land tensions that government has refused to resolve once and for all, they're brought up, and the local leaders use them as platform for elections. And yes, CS Matiang'i can go there and quell the clashes, but like we say, we have got the new land reports and several other reports of the situation in Laikipia that government needs to systematically implement, so that the smallholder is protected, and the guy who has rightfully purchased land is protected, and the rancher is also protected. But we don't want to do the hard work. We don't want to go meticulously through the system to ensure that during times like this, when there's no pasture and also elections looming around the corner, that we don't allow these nefarious characters to use that to create unnecessary tension and even death. And Laikipia is just an example. In fact, Honorable Tandaza's own coast is another bombshell, and we know that the government actually abandoned the implementation of the National Land Act.
Professor Menya, we are running out of time, so I would like us to shift gears to another story, the CBC, before we run out of time for today's segment. Professor Naituli, what do you make of the situation in the CBC? There have been concerns that have been raised, but the CS has said it is not going anywhere. We started in 2018 and we shall continue, albeit, challenges.
I think the minister needs to listen to people who think that this was a mistake. Mm-hmm. First of all, what the minister needs to ask himself is, how is it that we have changed our education 3 times, but the Britons, who we inherited that education system from them, have never changed theirs. Mm-hmm. Our neighbors, Uganda and Tanzania, they are still in the A-level system. So this idea of, the government bureaucrats can only steal the country's money by projects. So every time we feel we need the money, we start a new project. Clearly, this system is borrowed from the Scandinavian countries. Yeah. It requires heavy investment.
For sure.
It requires more classes.
Yes.
We can't afford that one here. Mm-hmm. So why did we go into it? Absolutely. Now, what was wrong with the 84-4? America is a superpower, uses 84-4. Mm-hmm. China is a superpower, is in 84-4. So what was wrong? We need to accept criticism and take it positively as a positive feedback, and see whether this system is workable or not. Clearly, the CBC cannot work in a corrupt country like this.
Yes.
Because even if government budget money, that money will not go into buying equipment for the children. Mm-hmm. It will go into people's pocket, because stealing is our culture now.
Yes. Honorable Tandaza, you had begun speaking about this. Please finish your thought.
About the CBC, remember on its launch, when it was initially announced that it was going to start, it took no less a person than a CS who said, we are not ready. But within 24 hours, she had to swallow her words and say, now we are ready. What would have happened in 24 hours from not being ready to being ready within 24 hours? So, unfortunately, in this country, we take decisions probably for political legacies, rather than expertise and changing the people's life. That is the problem. It is not just in education. When as we move around now alone, we see all our police officers in blue uniform. Basically, they've all changed into blue uniform. But if one was to be asked, what was wrong with the previous uniform? It was just a project, certainly, to make money by an individual. Otherwise, I would get to be convinced that a police officer would behave differently by changing from a white or gray to a blue. in terms of the performance. No. So for the CBC also, I'm sure it was a project just to benefit a few in terms of the so perceived extra infrastructure that will be put into the schools, which it cannot be traced on the ground, in terms of course, the printing books, the cartels. Professor was talking about, that they initiate projects. It's not the experts or the government, it's the cartels who initiates projects to eat that money that would come out of that project. It is very sad. It's unaffordable. The CBC is unaffordable. Parents are now telling me they will need a minimum of 2,000 shillings every day for, is it PP1 or grade 1 pupil, every week, in terms of the materials that are required. And this is money that the parents do not have. This is money from where we've been discussing in terms of the debt and the high taxes the parent cannot afford, the government cannot afford, they don't have that money. But somehow the government gets some money to steal to the individual. And from where we started, should one be convicted, it is still profitable. I think that is the quote that will take this day, that in Kenya, corruption is very profitable. It is the only avenue that you can make quick money. And even when you are caught, you can still bribe the prosecutors, bribe the judges, and you end up with a profit. That is the saddest part about this country. Otherwise,
Honorable Tandaza, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We have unfortunately run out of time. That is Kasim Tandaza, the Member of Parliament for Matuga. I keep saying Matungu for some reasons. It's Matuga constituency. Also, we had Professor Alfred Omenya, a governance expert, who has given us his views on some of the many stories that are making headlines this morning, as well as Professor Gitile Naituli, who's a former NCIC commissioner and a regular here on the show. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for making it here bright and early to be a part of Morning Express. Have yourself a nice day ahead. But on